Hello class, and welcome to this Bayou Billy walkthrough right here on Video Games 101 by way of Let's Play with Brigands. I'm your instructor, Professor Brigands, and we got a hard one. Anytime you have a game which has a practice mode as an option, you know you're getting into a hard game, as we're getting a page, we're being paged that our girlfriend has been kidnapped. That's how you found out in the late 80s, early 90s. Speaking of our girlfriend being kidnapped, let's go ahead and add this to the Rescue the Princess trope list of all the games we've done covered on this channel, just ahead of Adventures of Lolo. Very different adventures that Lolo and Billy went on in their respective games, but this is certainly a whole heck of a lot more challenging than anything Lolo ever faced with respect. I don't think this game gets enough credit for how difficult it is. I don't think people think of this game as among the most challenging. I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10, which on the frustration scale equates to renouncing your faith and attempting to broker a deal with the devil. Just on your knees, just begging, can I just get one more whip? Please, Satan. Blaze is going to talk about the whip and why it's so useful a little bit later in the item guide. Fluff has some interesting facts about this game which might help to explain why it's so difficult. Gary's got your boss beaters to help you take down every single boss with relative ease, and I've got your Bayou Billy walkthrough. So let's run the intro and get into this Bayou Billy walkthrough right here on Video Games 101. Alright, as we get ready to start a new game, you'll see there's two different game types we can choose from, A and B. A is if you have the light gun, the NES Zapper. You can use those in the shooting stages. If you just want to use the controller for the whole thing, which we're going to be doing, you go with Game Mode B. Practice lets you choose between the different types of stages in this game, so you can get familiar with them ahead of time. Again, a reflection of the difficulty, probably a good decision by them, the developers in Konami. If we want Annabelle back, you have to come to my estate. You will find that before reaching the estate, there's a gate. I need to give you the code. I think we definitely want to rescue Annabelle, one of the better animated ladies on the NES, as far as the princesses that we rescue. Just saying, Konami did it right. Get some nice cutscenes here. As we take a look at the controls for Bayou Billy. Nothing too crazy here. You'll see there's different controls for each of the different types of games, but yeah, nothing that's going to throw you for a loop. As we take a look at the Briggs notes now for this Bayou Billy walkthrough, the keys to beating this game. The main thing is to have a nice weapon, and again, Blaze is going to talk about those in a bit. Be conservative on the driving stages, and just kind of follow this guide. The enemy intelligence, the AI if you want to call it, it's all over the map for these guys. They back away and come at you at strange times. It's kind of annoying. The jump kicks do the most damage, and that's why I like to go with those for the most part, because there's not a whole lot of strategy when it comes to these beat-em-up parts, unless you have a nice weapon and can put yourself some distance between yourself and the enemies. So a lot of what makes this game difficult is the beat-em-up stages in particular. Is the enemies are very powerful. As you can see right here, we're already getting the snot beat out of us. There's very little strategy you can rely on. You try backing yourself into a corner and just kind of repeatedly doing jump kicks. They still get hits in on you quite easily, actually. The stun time that you have on them is virtually non-existent, as we're going to try to get this meat here before we get killed. But yeah, it's all about those items for the most part. Get about 8 jump kicks in, and we're just going to avoid the birds, jump kick our way through the swamp here to avoid these gators. We don't have to fight these gators, we'll have to fight some in the next section coming up, but here to explain a little bit more about the difficulty of this game, give us some insight. Here's our resident fact finder, Fluff.
The Adventures of Bayou Billy is a North American and European NES makeover of a 1988 Japanese Famicom title called Mad City. In another of the relatively rare instances of Western versions of games being more difficult than their Japanese counterparts, The Adventures of Bayou Billy was intentionally made to be more difficult than Mad City. Specific regional differences include enemies being more difficult to defeat in the beat-em-up stages, not being able to avoid certain alligator battles. You get less bullets from enemies you beat in the beat-em-up stages, you start with less ammo in the shooting stages, and you get less time to complete the driving stages, along with narrower roads. When you put all these changes on the table, it kinda sounds like the Japanese version would have been kinda fun.
Yeah, it really is. I played a bit of it to prepare for this class for comparison purposes, get a little footage, and this is one of those instances where you just walk right by it or jump right by it. In the Japanese version here, we have to fight these two gators, so make sure you have the stick here. That's the only way to get through this part unscathed, otherwise it's a very difficult battle. And plant yourself against that left tree, wait for them to come out, time your hits. In the next section, we want to prioritize the guy coming out of the water and knock the bulletproof vest out of his possession and pick that up. And here with an overview on that, here's Blaze. Alright, let's talk about the restorative and protective items, or item, I should say, in Bayou Billy, in the meat and bulletproof vest, respectively. The meat will top off your health. Certain enemies will drop this in the game. Note that if you hit one out of an enemy and it falls into the swamp and you can't see it, it's not gone. You just have to very painstakingly wait around in the swamp to find it in most cases. Yeah, just give it a little brush and that swamp water off. It's just as good. And then we have the bulletproof vest. This will protect you from the bullets and knives enemies will throw at you, and you'll take slightly less damage when wearing it in general. Same idea if it gets dropped into the swamp. Just wait around to find it. And it doesn't disappear necessarily. Enemies can keep knocking it off you, but you can just keep picking it back up. Unlike like a Final Fight game or something like that, where it has limited uses. So there you go, the meat and the bulletproof vest. Good look, thank you very much, Blaze. You can see these guys have a different look to them when they're wearing that bulletproof vest. The color of their outfit changes slightly. We want to make sure we have ours. You can see it was very key for getting those bullets to bounce right off of us. The gun is very powerful, we just have very limited ammo for it. That guy has a bulletproof vest on, you can tell by the white. Gotta disarm him first, then we can shoot him. Blaze, what about the weapons? Alright, let's talk about the weapons you can find in Bayou Billy. Most enemies will drop these when you hit them enough. First we have the stick. This is great on gators, hitting enemies from a little bit of distance, gives you a little buffer room. Next we have the blade, just pick it up and toss it, not that useful. The Magnum is the most powerful weapon, but you have a very limited number of shots. And then finally, my item of the game, the whip. This allows you to hit enemies from a very nice and safe distance and do some pretty good damage while you're at it. This is incredibly useful very late in the game on some of the bosses, as Gary will cover, and the professor as well, so make sure you hold on to this as long as possible here in Bayou Billy. Alright, we have our first shooting stage. Thank you very much, Blaze. You can see we have a finite number of bullets. Once that gets down to 0, it's just game over, essentially, or we lose a life, so can't be constantly firing. The ABF does not apply here. Be on the lookout for the guys who aren't moving. They're just kind of hiding behind the scenery. They're the ones who will drop different items, which are very important in these stages. So yeah, make sure you don't pull that trigger until you have the guy lined up in your sights. No need to waste ammo. You're going to need a decent amount of ammo for the boss at the end of the shooting level, so there will be some chances to get a bit back. You saw we already got one ammo replenishment. And actually, there's a health kit. Actually, let's bring in Blaze to talk about the items which are unique to these levels. Alright, let's talk about the items you can pick up or shoot in the shooting stages here in Bayou Billy. First, the first aid. This will refill your health like the meat in the combat stages. Shoot this to top off your health. Then you have bullets. Looks more like a grenade to me. I guess it's like a cartridge or something, but this is extra ammo for your gun. Make sure you pick these up, because if you run out of ammo, it's game over or you lose a life. You have the star, which clears all enemies off the screen once you shoot it. And then the hourglass basically suspends you from your shots costing you bullets when this is active. So there you are, the items you can find on these shooting stages of Bayou Billy. Thanks, Blaze. And note that these items do not hang out forever. There's a very limited window you have to shoot them, so... Coming up on the first boss of Bayou Billy, let's throw it to our resident boss expert, Gary.
It's Scary Gary's Boss Beaters.
Alright, the helicopter, the first boss in Bayou Billy on the shooting stage. You want to prioritize the ground enemies. The helicopter itself won't do as much damage. Obviously, we want to take it down as quickly as possible, but you'll take more damage if you just focus on the helicopter. So just pull away whenever you see someone pop on the screen. Go right back to that helicopter. Keep firing. You'll take it down.
Thank you very much, Gary. Yeah, don't leave those guys running around unchecked. They'll do the biggest damage to you. But don't be too confident. Yeah, because we're about to bring those awful controls from the first stage back. I'm surprised Nintendo's sensors didn't kind of cover her, or censor her a bit more there, Annabelle. There in the background. I'm trying so hard not to go to a let's meme it every time he does that throwaway there with the laugh, but we got another beat 'em up stage now. Disarm this guy first and get his stick. The controls are just very clunky in this too. You have to really press down to make your move to turn around sometimes. You don't turn around when you mean to, and you end up taking more damage. And there's a little delay before he actually does what you want him to, if it even registers the move that you're trying to make. It's really, really clunky controls, especially on these beat 'em up stages, unfortunately. So it's sort of the worst kind of difficulty, just poorly designed. Got some more gators we need to pop out. We don't have the tree to mark the distance this time, but the same principle applies. You can see he dropped some meat there in the swamp. Don't really need it at this point, but drop some more meat there. Just, I think, replaces the old meat. It's just like a part of his tail that's coming off that we're going down to eat. I don't know, I guess that's good eating. Billy doesn't strike me as the type of guy who's a picky eater, you know? But if you do need it, just make sure you go get it. You gotta listen for that sound effect with some of the non-restorative items, like if you're going in to find a weapon or something like that. Or a bulletproof vest that got knocked off of you, perhaps. Depending on what the next level is, they let you keep your handheld weapon in the beat 'em up stages. That'll be very important later on in the game. We don't want to accidentally pick up that dagger, so go around this way. That was interesting. Kind of has a look of like a Double Dragon reject, this guy right here. They're not quite as dangerous as the other guys. You'll notice that a lot of times when you knock a weapon out of someone's hand, they'll be very eager to go back and pick up that weapon or another weapon, so you can kind of use that to your advantage while they're distracted to get some more licks in. One nice thing which Konami grants us, probably the only nice thing, is the fact that weapons don't disappear unaccountably when they get knocked out of your hand, like a final fight when you had a nice sword going with Hager and someone knocks out of your hand and it just disappears into the void. Yeah, I don't know about that, but yeah, they hang out in this one. That guy will pick up the meat, you can see right there, but it's not like he's consuming the meat, he just holds on to it, so it just passes from... I got burned by the screen scroll right there, unfortunately. That's alright, there will be more meat. We got a bunch of Billy and Jimmy looking guys, actually. But more deadly. Because of how short they could get stunned for. A lot of times, you're just rolling the dice and just doing jump kicks and hoping that you're going to do more damage to them than they do to you, and you'll get a meat at the right time. There's a lot of luck, which is where a lot of the difficulty for this game stems from, but got another boss coming up. Gary's got a pretty good beater for this one. Gary, who we got this time?
Boss Beaters.
Alright, the Roid dude. I don't know. He's part of the gang. You want to lure him to the side, and as we show, just keep punching, and you'll stun lock him, and he'll try to grab you, but if you keep punching, you'll break out of it. Just keep going at the body with those punches, you'll take him down.
Love it. Yeah, he can't throw you when you just keep throwing those punches. Got our bulletproof vest for the next stage. Even though the next stage is our first driving stage, which unfortunately and unbelievably are some of the most difficult stages in this game. Doesn't look like a Gordon to me. Big Louisiana, New Orleans kind of crime syndicate guy. I like games on the NES which have kind of a unique setting, though, at least relative to the rest of the NES library. You don't see a lot of games set in the Bayou, you know, down south in Louisiana, New Orleans. So yes, the driving stages, as I just mentioned, are some of the most difficult in this game. It's not like Rad Racer, where if you hit something, you just flip the car and, you know, you have a nice laugh about it and maybe still beat the level. No, you lose a life and have to start over if you hit anything. In this one, your little Jeep explodes upon impact. So, as I mentioned in Briggs' notes, being conservative is key. Slow down into those turns. So we have other cars driving slowly. We have posts. We have... probably the rocks are the worst parts. The planes, obviously. The problem with the... ooh, thread the needle there. You have to come to a basic stop, essentially. Most of the rocks tend to show up around the middle or lefter side of the screen for what that's worth, but, you know, it's not a hard rule. It's just, in my experience, you get a bit more on that left side. Hitting A fires off, they call it the dynamite, and this is used to hit the planes. The problem is when you fire one off, you can't also fire your gun until that dynamite explodes. You know, just like real life, I guess. So, that was close. So, you need to make sure that you fire those kind of late and you're accurate with the shot, because as soon as it explodes on the plane, then we can get that gun going again, protect us from probably 90% of the cars which appear in front of us. But yeah, I would say the rocks are probably the most dangerous part of this game, or the driving portion of the game. Thankfully, there's little to no rocks on turns because, you know, nature. There's also water upcoming on the track, which will just bring you to a full stop because, again, nature? I don't know. I don't know what it was about the 80s, but designers of any game with a driving portion just decided that water had the same effect as tar, so... we actually just missed the item on the left side of the screen, the only item which appears on the screen, so let's have Blaze briefly tell us about what that is. Blaze? Alright, the gasoline on the driving stage. These are few and far between, but this can add some bonus time on the driving stages. If you stick to the tips the professor lays out, you shouldn't need these, but be on the lookout for them. They're kind of hard to pick up considering you're avoiding projectiles and obstacles in the road and everything else like that. But there you go, the gasoline and Bayou Billy. Good call. Thank you very much, Blaze. Yeah, slow and steady will generally win this with maybe a second to spare, but it's a lot better than driving recklessly and hitting a rock, especially there at the end. We should be in good shape. You can see your progress with the P at the top of the screen right there. We definitely got this one. We have one more driving stage immediately after this, which is more difficult. You got 5,000 point bonus. Good times. Did you enjoy your drive? The fun is over now. Oh, that was the fun level. The road you're about to take on is full of obstacles. Watch out, Billy. He's just having fun with us. Again, resisting an overwhelming urge to go to a let's meme it right there. Thankfully, we get the two driving stages out of the way early on. Or back-to-back, I should say. That was a gimme there. They could have counted that against us. Yeah, this one is trickier. You have to be a little more aggressive with your driving to finish in time on this one. Got the oil, which doesn't really cause that much of a hassle, quite honestly. It's not going to derail you or anything. Once again, they love their posts on the side of the screen here in the Deep South. No fencing between them. It's just markers too. A couple choppers back to back to punish anyone foolish enough to drive remotely on the side of the screen. Now, the turns are pretty nasty. That's all you could say about that. Always be firing. This is the one exception for the most part. You'd see a lot of times, like, we put a lot of bullets into that Jeep ahead of us, if you ask me, and it did not go down. There's just that kind of random aspect to it. Similar to the beat 'em up stages. Just came to a full stop there to avoid them dropping that bomb on us. Can't always brake quite as quickly as he would like going into some of these turns. You see right there, like, just the turns are so unforgiving. Even going like 2 miles an hour, you can still not be able to get out of the way of one of those posts. Again, felt like we put a lot of bullets into that car ahead of us, but not so much apparently. And then on the turns, they're generally a bit more forgiving about making those shots land. Got 2 different types of vehicles on this stage. I guess we had them in the last stage as well, but no real difference. And while we're trying to close, this is going to be tight actually. I'm always compare the time that we have up there versus our progress, but while we're trying to finish this out, let's bring in Fluff for another Fluff fact about Bayou Billy.
One more funny note on the Japanese version, Professor. In the Japanese version, which I mentioned earlier, which is called Mad City, you can actually run from your girlfriend Annabelle at the end of the game once you've beaten the final boss. Doing so will actually result in the bad ending of the game being shown. This was removed in the Western version, which makes sense when you think about it. Sure, it's pretty funny in the Japanese version, where it's a lot easier to play your way through back to that point and get the good ending if you so choose. But I can imagine a lot of players losing their minds playing through this extremely challenging game to accidentally walk off the screen and get presented with the bad ending.
Whew. Can't get much closer than that, thanks Fluff. 1 second on the clock. That's how tight that second drive is in particular, but I like that 3-dimensional chess Gordon's playing right there. You're better suited for gator hunting. Does that ever work? Like, I'm going to be like, oh, I do like gators and I am good at it. Okay. I'll stop trying to rescue my very attractive girlfriend there. Hunting gators does sound more fun than continuing playing this game, but we're on the Bourbon Street now. You can tell by that clearly labeled sign. I guess because it's a real place, Nintendo allowed that one, but I don't know. Maybe they're just lazy about this game when it came to the localization. You saw Annabelle's chest not being covered up in the least. Maybe the Nintendo censors never got this far. That's a distinct possibility. Just a little too difficult. Too much random luck involved in this one. You see we still have our body armor from, what, 2 stages ago? Something like that? This is going to be the first appearance of the whip on this stage. So we want to make sure we grab that and never give it up. Think Rick Astley on this one, class. It was Blaze's item for the game for a very good reason, so as soon as we have that, that's when the difficulty starts to shift back in our favor. Taking the whip into consideration, actually, this particular stage I don't find quite as difficult as the opening beat-em-up stages. Got this guy, we can get him to commit, we can bait him once he turns colors. Takes 6 jump kicks to take him down like most of the guys in this game, but as soon as he commits, he turns that color. That's when we can get in and start doing some of those jump kicks. We're not going to be able to get all of them off. 6 is a push. It's only if you get right up on the guy after he throws his little ball and chain there that you can get 6 hits in on him before he resets and throws it again. I think we have a couple of these guys now back to back, so we just kind of keep them separated. This one had some meat, thankfully. This one might pick it up, actually, but we're going to leave it there, obviously, until we need it at the last second. Make sure the screen doesn't scroll it off this time. Just pick it up and move on. I think we have our first whip person coming up. Let's be right after this stretch here. They just sort of have a nondescript, long bladed weapon or something. We can't get it, we can't knock it out of their hands, but they do seem to have something, unless that's just their poorly animated limbs. There's our first whips. There we go. I think they picked it back up. Gonna have to probably finish these guys off before we grab our body armor again. Here we go. Now you get to see it at work. Now the game becomes a lot more manageable at this stage, once we go all Indiana Jones. While we're whipping up these fools, let's go back to Fluff for another fact.
The character of Bayou Billy was unsurprisingly heavily influenced by Paul Hogan's character of the 1986 international breakout hit Australian film Crocodile, Dundee. The film went on to be the second biggest grossing film at the box office that year, only finishing behind Top Gun, and made over $350 million internationally. Hogan himself was surprised that the film became such a huge success, and was quoted as saying, "I thought I was just making a nice little comedy movie for Australia." One more fun fact about the movie, Nickelodeon's Clarissa Explains It All-star Melissa Joan Hart filmed a scene with Hogan in Central Park for the film, but it was ultimately cut out of the final edit.
Pretty good, I like that. Thanks, Fluff. Yeah, when I was a kid, had a little crush on Clarissa. Not gonna lie. It was a good show. One of those, kind of like Pete and Pete, where it had a weird, kind of adult, off-the-wall sense of humor to it, but kids could lock into it. Still holds up. Pete and Pete especially still holds up, surprisingly. Make sure we do not pick up this stick. There's no real incentive to pick up extra whips, but you never know. Moon Konami. I'm sure that was changed in the localization from Mad City. Almost looked like our whip was about to disappear there, but again, not in this game, thankfully. Just so much easier to just get a couple whips, and they keep moving, again, because there's no real stagger time. They can just keep coming up on you. But just get a couple hits in, reposition yourself, keep the enemies in front of you, don't get surrounded like most fighting games. Sticks all over Bourbon Street, but I'm gonna stick with the whip, no pun intended. Much more powerful. Very clutch for some bosses late in the game, as I think was alluded to earlier. Alright, might lose our first life here unless somebody's got some pocket meat. Anybody carrying? There we go. Alright, now it's just a matter of getting to it. I don't want to make the mistake of getting hasty and running up on it. It's so weird that they just take the time to pick up that meat. I don't know why that freaks me out as much as it does. Just mystifies me. I don't know why that guy was wearing that. Strictly speaking, there's no bullets on the stage. There's no guns. They have that bullet meter, but the guns are very few and far between in this game. Adds to a lot of the difficulty. Yeah, sometimes when they get that close and we got our backs up against... See the bulletproof vest working against the knife as well. That was very handy. That's why you always want to scoop that back up. Thread the needle to avoid lesser weapons. And while we're trying to finish out this stage, let's go back to Fluff for another Fluff fact about Bayou Billy.
Bayou Billy appears in the Captain N the Game Master episode, How's Bayou? Missing a real opportunity to be voiced by voice actor extraordinaire Billy West. That's actually the name of Bayou Billy's character. The episode sees Mother Brain have Dr. Wily constructing a robotic cat, which leads Captain N to the world of Bayou Billy, who teaches Captain N some tricks. If I've said it once, I'll say it again. That was a wacky show, Professor.
It really was, and I still stand by it that they should bring that back. I know there'd be a lot of rights that you would have to get, but you gotta prioritize these guys on the motorcycles. On this stage, this is our final shooter stage. You can anticipate where those guys are gonna be coming from when they go off the screen. They always come roaring right back from that same side. They also leave you very useful items, bullets, things of that nature to keep your campaign going. It's easy to miss some of these guys who are hiding behind these windows on this stage. So, be very aware. I like to keep my crosshair at around this height on a lot of this stage to get the guys who show up in the foreground and the background. You don't have to move around the cursor quite as much. It's a bit more effective. You tend to use less bullets. Getting a little crazy right there. He will drive up the stairs sometimes. Again, just trying to be conservative, not pulling that trigger until we get somebody in our crosshairs. I forgot about the bulletproof vest. I think this is the only one in the game, actually, but yeah, it obviously just protects us, makes us invincible for a certain amount of time, so don't waste any bullets, unless it's an enemy who is going to give you a power-up, like the guy on the motorcycle. But again, it takes a lot of shots to get that guy on the ground. Might be better off just conserving your ammo. You should have probably at least 50 bullets when it comes to this next boss, and yeah, they're a bit of a handful. So let's turn it over to our resident boss expert again to get the strategy on this boss. Gary?
Boss beaters.
Bros, you got the little one that jumps around and the bigger one which just keeps shooting. You want to focus on the little guys who jump left to right to keep firing, and you'll negate his daggers just by firing right on top of him. Once you take him out, you can focus on the bigger brother. You'll take less damage. I've tested this a lot. You'll take less damage by focusing on the little guy, not worrying about the daggers. And then moving on to the bigger guy, who doesn't do quite as much damage. But if you have a little bit of health in the tank, focus and stick to this strategy. You'll take down the bros.
Thank you, Gary, and thank you, Gordon. He's going to throw us a party, and it's going to be the last one for you.
Because you don't have any friends, Billy. That's the joke.
All right. I got you, Gordon. He's going to try to kill us. So we should still have our whip from the 6th stage. If you don't have the whip at this stage, then you can pick one up from one of the enemies, or several of the enemies. Hopefully you still have your bulletproof vest as well. There's no reason to not have the bulletproof vest at this stage in the game. Again, when someone knocks it off, you just go and pick it up. Unless the screen scrolled it away, which is very unlikely, then you should be in good shape on this stage for the most part. It's a completely different game once you have the whip and the bulletproof vest late in the game. It's just, things get a lot easier, especially combined with Gary's boss beaters that he's got for the final couple bosses right here. Some of these guys, yeah, that guy had a bulletproof vest. But it's absolutely imperative that you have a whip going into the final stage. And again, there's no reason not to have one. Plenty of enemies drop them in this stage. So just make sure you do not finish the level without the whip. Might as well fire your bullets. They're going to take them away from you unaccountably before we go in to the final stage here, which is just a mini boss rush. You love Annabelle strong. I mean, yeah, look at her. I love Annabelle. Can't let you have her. If you want Annabelle, you'll have to take me on first. Let's see what you got. You know what I got? I got Gary's boss beater for you, which means your days are very numbered. Gary, Gordon.
Boss beaters.
Alright, as the professor mentioned with Gordon, the big bad boss himself, you should have that whip at this stage in the game from that last level. You want to force him into basically a whip's length against that right wall and a few steps from the top and just keep whipping him to embarrass him relentlessly for subjecting you to this very difficult game. But yeah, stick to this combo, this strategy, getting a good rhythm. He can't break out of it, he'll just keep trying to reset. You'll just keep smacking him. It's very satisfying and very effective.
It's embarrassing when he goes down that fast after throwing all that shade, but final boss.
Boss beaters.
Alright, the real final boss is the Bayou Billy, Rocky and Rocco, the presumed heirs of Gordon's estate, his fortune and everything. You'd think they'd be like, hey, thanks man for killing him. Now we're rich, but no, I guess maybe they want to fight it out to the death with you to maybe hope that the other guy dies and they'll get it all to themselves. But either way, this is a very, very slow battle. But you can get through the whole thing without taking any damage. Note that you can try to attack them more directly, but that's going to result in you getting the snot beat out of you. So stick to the strategy, have a ton of patience, and the strategy is this. You want to circle around. We like to go in a counterclockwise pattern, as you can see right here, and then get those whips off when you have enough distance from the bosses. Typically at the 10 and 4 o'clock, those corners of the screen, as you can see right here. Don't force extra attacks or hasty attacks. If the enemies, the bosses, are too close to you, if you can sense that, just keep moving around in a circle and buy yourself a little more room before you get that attack off. They should be bunched up like we show right here. And yeah, eventually you'll take them down. Good luck. You have beaten Bayou Billy.
Can't smoke him yet. Thank you very much, Gary, for this unbeatable boss strategy right here. My god, this is tedious though. Fluff, please, just say anything to take my mind off of this very boring battle.
Bayou Billy also had a short 5-issue comic book series from Archie Comics, which develops more of Billy's character as a bounty hunter, assisted by some companions to take down Gordon and his bodyguards Rocky and Rocco, who were actually made to be his sons in the comic. They take some more liberties, like Annabelle having no connection to Billy before he rescues her, after which they become romantically linked, and Billy's first wife being killed mistakenly from a hit Gordon placed on Billy.
That's tragic. Thanks, Fluff. Much appreciated. Yeah, we're gonna speed this up. There's no reason to watch this in real time. Alright, that's a little better. Need some yakety sax music right here, actually. Unfortunately, it's not in the public domain, so you'll have to insert it yourself in your own head, but we got the red guy. It's Power Ranger wannabes dressing up for Halloween. Honestly, that guy, I mean, the scale's a little big, but I think, like, it would be a cool-looking protagonist in a different game if we were that guy. I don't know if that's Rocco or Rocky, but anyway. Slow it back down here for the final whip. Second to final whip. And the final whip. There it goes. Alright, Annabelle. Played through an awful game for you. I mean, the game itself isn't bad, it's just needlessly difficult. We get a half-decent ending right here. Like the sparkle in her eye, I guess the tears welling up from joy. We just look badass. Yeah, Gordon just kept making that same stupid laugh. Thinking of you is what got me this far. Never gonna let you go. Not quite a Rick Astley reference there, but can never let you experience something like this again. I think he's talking to us. And he's saying, don't worry, there will be no sequels. That's nice. It'd be an awkward time for her to tell Billy that she's been thinking about seeing other people. There you go. Pretty decent kiss right there. Compare that to the end of Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Game which I like quite a bit. But yeah, that kiss at the end of that game, super awkward. Thugs McGraw. Kill can't make these names. I mean, they did. Strictly speaking, they did make these names up, but the Cajun Cutthroat, Migraine Mike, without the I, or the second I, the Whipmaster A.L. Hurt, Swamp Gas Charlie, the Dogmaster, Iron Man Blackie Blue, and Rocky and Rocco, yeah, the heirs to Gordon's throne. Godfather Gordon, the gangster, king of Bourbon Street, no more. Yeah, who's gonna slot in now? One of those Gators? I'd play that game, actually. I was just saying I'd never play a sequel. But, Mr. Konami, man, he banged a lot of those scripts out back in the late 80s. Sometimes writing under the pen name Mr. Ultra, for those who know. But there you go. Bayou Billy walkthrough right here on Video Games 101. Not a bad game, just incredibly difficult, much more so than it needed to be. Probably one of the few times where I would advise anyone who wants to play this game, go play Mad City instead. Play the Japanese original version, which this game was localized, and unnecessarily the difficulty was beefed up for just no reason whatsoever. That game, a lot more forgiving, a lot more fun. But that's our time for this week. Thank you so much to all my TAs this week, doing an excellent job. And please consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. We do one of these classes every single week in the same spot. We'd love to have you enrolled. And leave a comment. Have you beaten this game before? When's the last time you played it, probably? I think a lot of people forget about this game. But, again, not a bad game, just way too difficult. And click that like button if you don't mind. It really does help us out for making future classes for you. But that's our time. We'll see you next week in the same spot, right here on Video Games 101. We hope to see you then. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and comment on this video, and click subscribe if you haven't already, as this seriously helps me to keep making great content for you. And check the description of this video to see what song is playing right now.